Welcome to AI for You, the go-to podcast for higher ed professionals looking to integrate AI into their daily work. I'm your host, Brian Piper, the Director of Content Strategy and Assessment at the University of Rochester. Join me every other Thursday for practical uses of AI within higher education communications, marketing, and student engagement. We'll focus on ways to quickly integrate AI into your teams to increase your efficiency and effectiveness and help you optimize your workflows and processes. I'll interview experts and feature relevant use cases with the goal that every episode gives you at least one thing you can take away and start leveraging in your job today. AI for You is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Welcome back to AI for You. We're presenting live from HighEdWeb conference. We are here with Paul Roetzer from the Marketing AI Institute, who is the keynote for the event. Paul, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm glad to connect in person again. We just saw each other a couple weeks ago.
I know. The Maycon event was mind-blowing. I'm still reeling from everything that was presented at that.
You and me both. My brain's still mush 2 weeks later.
Yeah, for sure. So now you're at a HighEd event. I know you've dealt with and worked with a lot of different institutions. How do you see AI impacting higher ed? Not just like from an academic and learning standpoint, but from admissions, from the future of education?
Yeah, I think a lot of universities are still trying to figure that out. I think that the obvious area they focus on initially is the classroom. Just often a lot of companies initially focus on their own products and services. And with higher ed institutions, what they really need to do is zoom out and look at all the areas, the advancement office, raising of funds, the enrollment, all of these things. I remember I was talking to a president of a university last spring, and he was saying, we're sitting at lunch, and he says, I just spoke to 500 potential incoming freshmen. They all walked out of there, and I don't know a single thing about any of them. We can't target them with personalized messages. We don't know if their family members came to this university before. We don't know if they're actually interested. We just do this thing because we've always done it this way. It was driving him mad that he couldn't take a more intelligent approach to this. And I think that's where we're at, is you're starting to get leaders of universities stepping back and realizing this isn't just about the classroom. This is about how we run our institutions. And there's so many opportunities to build smarter organizations when you take that holistic approach to AI.
Yeah, and so higher ed tends to be slow to change, slow to advance, especially with new technology. We're still, figuring out social media for higher ed. It's been around for a little while. What do you do when you're talking to these leaders and they just don't understand the impact that this technology is going to have?
I do think that many of the leaders I have met with understand. I think, shortly after ChatGPT, so end of 2022 into early 2023, as we're getting GPT-4 coming out in March of 23, there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of people scrambling to try and understand, what is this? What is generative AI? What are the implications of this? Are students using it to cheat? Was basically the initial focus. And I think that took the better part of the end of the 22-23 school year. So that was it. And then they got into the summer of 23, and it's okay, let's regroup going into 2024. But again, the focus initially is on, we got to solve for the classroom, the experiences, the curriculum. But then you had people starting to step back and trying to understand the moment they were in and start looking at all these other areas that, higher education institutions deal with. And so I think it wasn't until fall of 23 where people really started to realize that they needed to plan and they needed to figure this out. And So here we are in 2024, and I think that they're still trying to figure out how to really take a holistic approach to this. So I don't know. A lot of leaders I talk with understand it, that is important. They just don't know what to do, and that's at all levels of education. But certainly at universities that I have met with, that's kind of where they're at. And I haven't. I don't know if you've seen it, but I haven't really seen one that's solved for the big picture. Like I've seen some good work being done within the classrooms, evolving curriculum. I have seen some instances where it's being integrated throughout the institutions, but I couldn't give you one university to go look at and say, here's the blueprint on how to do it.
Right. So when you're working with these institutions and they finally say, okay, yeah, we need to do this, what's the process you recommend? Where do they start?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not unlike how I would advise enterprises. It all starts with understanding, education, ironically. And so AI literacy of their own people, their own leaders. And so like one of the best examples I have is back in 2019, I was brought into Ohio University, and we had 130 or so School of Business administrators and faculty. And so this is way before ChatGPT, obviously. But the dean at the time, Hugh Sherman, who became the president of Ohio University a year or so later, he saw the opportunity to educate there and to have them be empowered to figure it out on their own, not to tell them this is everything we're going to do. It's like, here's what you need to know. Now let's go do it. We ran a workshop together and kind of brainstormed all the different ways that the university could be infusing AI at that time. And I think that's a great way to do it, is you have to engage these people. I mean, obviously these universities are filled with brilliant people. They don't need their handheld to solve everything. They just need to be given the knowledge so they can go connect the dots and figure out what it means to their area. And so I think that's, what we kind of look at is the whole idea of the literacy up front. AI councils, which we advise enterprises. We'll talk about that during the keynote, is the idea of having those AI councils and department level. You can have institutional level. The policies and principles that guide the organization. Impact assessments is a big area that we're not seeing is done yet. Like the impact of what are the majors you offer? What are the impact on every school? What are the impact on the careers that you're teaching these students to come out, with as parents, on evaluating the school based on their vision for where the future of work is going in 5 years. And then just having an overall plan, a blueprint, roadmap, playbook, whatever you want to call it, that looks across the institution and says, these are the ways we're actually going to prioritize AI.
And, you mentioned AI Council. We've learned a lot from your, recommendations and your content that you have around that. Talk about a little bit about the piloting aspect of it, because I know once you kind of get your guidelines in place, then you have to really start looking at how you're going to, like from a tactical standpoint, start integrating this in the most impactful way.
We talk about it as step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, but the reality is they're not sequential. Like all these things are often happening simultaneously across different areas. And the piloting should be happening the whole time. And that is just finding those valuable use cases, because so much of what we see in the lack of adoption is people just don't know how to start. And they don't know how to find the 1 or 2 or 3 things that they're going to get immediate value from and build momentum. And maybe they need to convince the leaders in their area that this is worth investing in. And you do that by showing success, not selling a 5-year plan and asking for more resources and a big thing that's hard to understand, an abstract thing. It's focus to the most narrow thing you can to show the value, and then to start stacking those success stories. So I know I heard you talking about Notebook LM, that's one we'll talk about in my keynote. And I think it's such a great example of a really practical thing where anyone can now immediately see a use case. And again, that's any role within an institution. Just that product alone, you can obviously use it within a classroom, help students understand a complex topic. You can use it in research. You could use it in strategic planning. There's just so many ways to apply that kind of thing. And so I think that's a key, is to your point, those pilot projects where you just show value really fast, where you don't have to spend a bunch of money. I heard, I stepped in your session toward the end there, and you said, you got a $2,000 budget. They gave you a chance to test 10 different tools for a couple months. That's That's crazy. Like, to think about that statement, like we got a $2,000 budget approved and we tested 10 tools for 2 months. Like, and think about all the value you can unlock with that kind of pilot project over a 60-day period. That's awesome.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about the pace that AI is advancing at. You're pretty close to things that are happening in the industry. There were some things, some people that spoke at your event that were pretty enlightening about what's coming, what's next. What do you think the future holds for higher ed as far as these tools, once knowledge transfer might not be the way to get people into universities anymore?
Yeah, I don't know. This is something that I think about at times, but I don't have the answers to like the future of education, the future of these higher ed institutions. It's part of the reason I like doing events like this, because I'm trying to just give the people who are the experts in this area, have spent their lives, in higher education, give them the knowledge they need to figure out that path. Because like the way I look at it is, I talk with a lot of different industries, from healthcare to accounting to legal to marketing, and I'm not an expert in a lot of those areas, but I spend more time than the average human thinking about AI and the future of what it's going to be capable of. And so my goal is to give people that knowledge so that they can figure out how to apply it to what they do. So I don't know. I think it's going to get really interesting. I think there's a lot of unknowns with, if we just look out 2 years from now, we have a fairly good idea of what these models are going to be capable of doing. And just that alone presents a lot more questions than answers about what the future of work looks like in the near future. I mean, just while you were on stage today, I don't know if you saw this yet, but like OpenAI is rolling out the advanced voice. It's in the next week, everybody who's a paid user will have it. There's word, we're not looking at our phones right now, that Anthropic's dropping their next model in the next 24 hours. Google updated their models this afternoon. Like, it's a crazy week. I know there's some stuff coming from Amazon. Like, by the end of this week, there's going to be a whole bunch more to digest and like what does this mean?
Right.
And that's where we're basically at, is like every week or a couple times a month, we're just stepping back and saying, okay, is this staying on track with what we thought was coming, and what does it mean now?
Right. Even all the Salesforce stuff that just
Salesforce stuff, the AI agent stuff. Yeah, you're listening to the episode this week. Like, the agent stuff's crazy, and it's just exploding. It's everywhere, and it's. I spend all day thinking about this stuff, and sometimes it's really hard to wrap my own mind around how quickly things are emerging.
For sure. I could spend hours talking with you about this. I really appreciate you coming on the show, and looking forward to your keynote tomorrow, and hopefully we'll get you back for a full episode at some point.
Let's do it. Look forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Paul.
Thank you for listening to another episode of AI for You. I hope you found at least one useful thing you can take away and start adding to your workflows and processes today. Remember, the key to making the most of AI is to keep experimenting, keep learning, and of course, keep creating. AI for You is a part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to become a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Artis Kadu, Day Kibbles, Shane Baglini, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.